Welcome back to Full Disclosure with Christian Thayer. It's officially that time of year again where I want to go to bed at 7:30. So in this episode, we are getting right into it. I don't know if you guys have been living under a rock this past month or so, but Zillow has been making a decent amount of headlines, and not for the best of reasons. It sort of started a month ago when it sort of came out that it was possible that they were, just their whole iBuying program what was just a little bit too good to be true. I don't know if you guys saw any articles about how, they were possibly manipulating the market because of how many homes they were buying in a specific neighborhood, and then they were setting the base price, and then that's how they were making their money, blah blah blah. So that's there was like a couple TikToks about it, and so I don't know if you guys saw anything about that. But so that sort of is, to my knowledge, is what sort of started the magnifying glass that was the world looking at Zillow's iBuying program. And then I don't know if it was just happen chance or if there actually was something going on. But like a few weeks after that all came out, then they were kind of like, oh well, now we're gonna like maybe slow down our iBuying process because a lot of our homes are underwater. We're not being able to make money, blah blah blah. And then sometime last week, I believe it was maybe Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, they actually announced their earnings for their stock, and they pretty much missed on literally everything, sending their stock tumbling. I think it was something around 24% after hours. Zillow's announcement on last Tuesday that it was ending its Zillow's offer program sent shockwaves through the real estate world. The moment cast a shadow on what has essentially been the hottest trend in real estate for years, because last time I checked, any big real estate company, for the most part, either A, has some sort of iBuying program, or at least is dipping their toe in the iBuying game. So the big question that it raised, though, is like, what happens next, right? Because the company is still sitting on a vast portfolio of physical assets, and it continues to have a wildly popular platform among consumers, and has promised to press on with its vision to offer more to users. Um, so, to figure out what lies ahead in the near and medium term for Zillow, according to the article, there was a decent amount of interviews that were done that basically gave the whole sense that in the coming months, it's going to be a little bit weird for Zillow as it winds down its iBuying operations. And multiple observers who spoke with Inman say that they expect the company to have another pivot up its sleeves soon. I don't exactly know what that pivot is, but I believe we're going to talk about it in the article. So, what are some of the takeaways from Zillow stepping away from its iBuying aspect? Like, does that mean that other big companies are also going to have to slow it down, or was Zillow just doing something that they shouldn't have been doing? I think the question that most people are probably asking themselves is, okay, what is Zillow now going to do with all of its homes that it bought? Much has been made in recent days about the fact that the company is sitting on 7,000 plus unsold homes that it now needs to sell. But more than likely, the total number of homes Zillow needs to sell is probably much higher because the company has already begun the process of buying many properties while not yet completing those transactions. In its share letter published last Tuesday, the beginning of November, Zillow revealed that at the end of September, it had a total of 9,790 homes in inventory, with another 8,100 or thereabout homes under contract. Those numbers are now over a month old and have no doubt changed. But the key to keep in mind is that there were nearly as many homes under contract as there were that had been purchased outright. That means that even at this point, Zillow still likely has thousands of more homes it will be purchasing even as the iBuying program officially winds down. Asked about this situation, a Zillow spokesperson told Inman that the company intends to follow through with the contracts it had already begun. The company also plans to sell homes quickly and on the open market, where they would be available to either own occupants, individual investors, or institutional investors. Zillow also expects to offload these homes within 2 quarters. That timeline is a result of the time it takes to buy, renovate, list, and sell a house. a process that even in best case scenario can take 2 months or more. So the short answer to the question, what happens to the homes, is relatively simple. Zillow will sell them. However, there is potential for some creativity in how exactly this process plays out. Matt Woods, co-founder and CEO of Sold.com, told Inman that when it comes to the houses, Zillow would consider slowly burning them off. Current price appreciation, though perhaps less intense than it was a few months ago, is still happening. Woods speculated that such appreciation could potentially be outpacing the interest on Zillow's debt, meaning holding onto the properties longer would technically be more profitable. Zillow hasn't articulated such a strategy, but if recent months have shown anything, it's that the market is unpredictable and thus so are the ways companies respond to it. Woods didn't think that Zillow's inventory would ultimately be a long-term issue for the company. So the next question that we have to talk about or ask ourselves is, where exactly does Zillow pivot? During his call with investors Tuesday, Zillow co-founder and CEO Rich Barton said that the company's quote-unquote 2.0 vision, a major part of which was iBuying, remained very much alive. Instead of buying houses outright, however, the company would focus on programs that are asset and cash light, and that makes a little bit of sense. The comment hints at a pivot for Zillow, though Barton didn't say specifically what that pivot might look like. Insert your friend's reference here about Ross yelling pivot. However, one real estate analyst suggested it could be a turn to what he calls a power buyer, or in other words, a company that offers services such as cash backing to home buyers rather than working with home sellers. In other words, the analyst is saying that he wouldn't be at all surprised to see something like Zillow Cash Offers powered by the Zillow Home Loans business. The idea is that such a product could allow consumers to get instantly approved for a purchase or enable them to buy before selling their existing home. And the analyst added such product offerings would offer a significant amount of value to home buyers while also being quite easier than iBuying itself. Many people would consider this pivot far less risky, and it puts you in more of the mortgage game, which they're trying to get into next. So with all this being said, what exactly should we think about the Zestimate? Back in 2019, one analyst explicitly tied the Zestimate to Zillow offers. Barton said during a radio interview in the past that ideally he would like to have the Zestimate be a live offer for every house in the country. He went on to add that it will take quite some time to get there, but that is nevertheless where we're headed. Clearly, Zillow never got there, and that might ostensibly seem like a blow for the viability of the Zestimate, and some observers did indeed see this week's news in that light. For instance, Rick Rudman, president and CEO of home improvement startup Curbio, told Inman that he doesn't think this bodes well for using an quote-unquote automated valuation model. At the end of the day, when it comes to valuing homes, it's like valuing art, Rudman said. Sometimes you just need to have a human being look at it. Liz Young, founder and CEO of the home valuation startup Realm, also told Inman the gold standard of home valuations has just blown up overnight. But not everyone believes Zillow's iBuying failure is in the end bad news for the Zestimate. Woods argued that Barton's desire to make the Zestimate also an iBuyer offer put additional pressure on the tool, which he noted is often generous in its valuation and consequently earns the ire of some agents. But now, the pressure to be more accurate and to connect more directly to Zillow's bottom line is reduced, returning the Zestimate to its origins. The real estate analyst that I mentioned earlier also didn't see the Zestimate suffering significantly from the end of Zillow offers. He described the tool as a great starting point and a toy meant to generate consumer interest in houses. It's free, easy, and fast, told Inman. Why wouldn't you take a look at it? But I'd also still talk to a realtor. For its part, Zillow has indicated it continues to have faith in the Zestimate. During his call on Tuesday with investors, Barton said Zillow will continue to invest in the tool. Perhaps more significantly, a company spokesperson told Inman that the struggle for Zillow offers stemmed from the pricing homes in the future, often months down the road. Alternatively, the Zestimate is designed to be used as a tool in real time and offers information only about the present moment. That distinction highlights both why Zillow can reasonably double down on the Zestimate now and why it proved impossible to turn the Zestimate into an iBuyer offer. In the end, those are just two different things with very different relationships to time. And last but not least, let's talk about the layoffs that Zillow is going to have to do because of the cut to the iBuyer program. One of the most surprising things about Zillow's announcement Tuesday was that it would lay off 25% of its workforce. These layoffs will happen over time as the company winds down operations, and in the majority of positions that will be cut are dispersed across the US and Zillow's various iBuying markets, as opposed to being at the company's headquarters in Seattle. Asked about the layoffs, the real estate analyst said that they serve as a good reminder as to how people intensive iBuying is. All of the iBuyers need lots of boots on the ground to make it work, which has been a part of the challenge for Zillow. The analyst also added, it's also quite different to its core internet advertising business, which scales based on computers, not people. Some of the company's leaders who spoke with Inman weren't surprised by the scale of Zillow's layoffs. Woods, for instance, noted that Zillow's employee ranks have grown more than 25% over the last year, meaning that even after the current layoffs, the company will still be larger than it was in its recent past. On the other hand, Liz Young, founder and CEO of home valuation startup Realm, described experiencing some disbelief when she first heard about the large scale of the layoffs. And she speculated that it could lead to more employee churn at Zillow as workers leave, both voluntarily and not, in search of stable jobs. So, with Zillow cutting down its iBuyer program, does that mean that other iBuying programs will also be shutting down as well? Do you think they will be maybe scaling back? Do we think that Zillow is a isolated incident where they were maybe extending a little bit too far? And the whole reason that they're even shutting down is because they were paying too much for these houses to begin with. Because not to mention in this article, they're pretty much underwater on most of those houses that they are under contract with. So that is primarily the reason why they're even shutting this down. Their eyes were essentially bigger than their stomach. And they're like, hold up, we are not going to be able to be getting all this money back because we are just paying simply too much for these houses. So with that being said, other iBuying programs such as Open Door, as well as some other ones that I cannot think of at the top of my head right now. OfferPad is another one. As long as they're not essentially doing what Zillow was doing, where they're just buying way too expensive of houses and then they're trying to flip them with either a very slim profit margin or almost no profit margin, then they will also, I'm sure we will be having articles written about them in the near future. But if they're not doing that and they're actually playing the game how they're supposed to be playing the game, then yeah, I don't think iBuying is hard. Like I mentioned at the end of that article that I read, what makes an iBuyer successful is having boots on the ground, so to speak, so that you can sort of verify the whole fact that what the iBuyer is willing to pay for it is actually worth it, and that obviously requires probably human eyes to go out and check the house to make sure that it's worth $400,000 or if it's worth $325,000. So I think the iBuyers that are still around, as long as they're not trying to scale too quickly, they're not trying to get too big, especially now that arguably one of the more powerful iBuyers is now gone, i.e. Zillow. Who is going to take the throne, so to speak. So as long as companies don't get stupid, I think iBuyers will inevitably stick around. It's just a matter of how to do them correctly. That has been all for this episode of Full Disclosure. Thank you so much for sticking around. And as always, I will talk to you next episode.